What would be more Christ-like? A capitalistic system like we see today, or something like a universal basic income? Well, it's something we kind of talked about in our latest episode of the Dan and Can podcast when we played a clip from Mark Driscoll. And in that clip, which I posted in the video yesterday, he was talking about how UBI, Universal Basic Income, is unbiblical, how the stimulus checks were unbiblical, basically saying anything that was given by the state would be unbiblical, which I found ironic from Mark for many reasons. One, I think he was just pissed off because a lot of churches did receive stimulus checks and he must not have. They got that little boost during COVID because their business wasn't functioning right and they were struggling because tithes weren't coming in, because people weren't guilted into giving them that money at the time. But universal basic income, in case you don't know, is just basically a system set up by the state that says this is the floor of what people can make in this country. This is absolutely the lowest amount of income a household could have. And usually it's set a little above the poverty line in most cases. So then if you're working a job and you're getting paid below the poverty line, it bumps you up to that. So if the UBI level is set at 40,000, you only made 36, the government would cut you a check for $4,000 to get you that 4, so you'd be above poverty. Actually have a fighting chance to provide rent and food for your family. That seems a lot more Christ-like than the current system of you just got to go find a job, which is what Driscoll was implying that these people were doing. And is that the case? Yeah, there's some people, and I've known a few, that refuse to do full-time work because they were on government assistance. But I also know a lot more people that needed that assistance because the only job they could get at that time due to circumstances in their life, whether it was still trying to further their education or child care or numerous other things, they couldn't make ends meet. So they could only work a certain amount of hours at a certain type of job. Who pays for it all? It should be mostly the businesses that pay for it all. Because if they're not paying their employees enough to keep them out of poverty, then they need to make up for that in the long run. It would encourage them to pay a little bit more to these people so then they wouldn't have to pay this tax on it. But in our current system, we don't have that anymore. So I ask you, which would be a more Christ-like situation, where the state and the people of the state that are well off and do better, that have more money than they know what they can do with, helping out and looking after the poor? It almost sounds like a beatitude to me.